Hello, my name is Christopher Deane, and I'm a professor of percussion at the University of North Texas. Very proud to be a part of that ensemble of teachers. And today I'm here to talk about some of the techniques in the composition Mourning Dove Sonnet. This piece, remarkably, is 38 years old now. Kind of remarkable, really, to me anyway. Doesn't seem like that long, but luckily it still seems to have some interest out there. So what I'd like to do today is just talk about some of the techniques that are in the piece. I'll start with a little bit of the history of the piece. I was living in Greenville, North Carolina in the fall of 1982 through the spring of 1983. And I was trying to create this recital of all vibraphone music. And so I knew I needed this piece that had timbral exploration as its aspect. And so I came up with a lot of the sounds, which I'm going to describe momentarily, and how to produce them. But I didn't really have a theme. I was lacking a theme, and I know that one can hardly write a book, a novel, let's say, before you have a story. So I kind of needed a theme, and I was sitting out on the back porch of my little house, drinking a very bad cup of coffee, and I heard a mourning dove singing their solo. And the mourning dove, this particular one, had a very pure sense of pitch, a B natural. It was really quite accurate. That's exactly what the bird was singing. So, you know, plagiarism is the sincerest form of flattery, so I thought, well, I'll just steal that as a theme, and that became kind of my focus of interweaving the bends and the solo tones into it, into the piece. But that wouldn't make an entire piece. Bending notes on the vibraphone has been around for a long time. The story I knew or I learned was that Emil Richards, one of the studio percussionists, had improvised this technique using a metal lighter on the instrument, probably not very good for the bars, but he was able to get a pitch bend. Gary Burton, who's the great jazz vibist, also used bending as an aspect of his expression on the instrument. And in that era, by the way, they used usually a blue Musser rubber mallet. That's the one that I started out using. The problem with that, using a rubber mallet, although it's really great for avoiding the potential for buzz, is that it has a limited range. I could never get anything to bend much beyond this F here and this E here, because the rubber of the mallet would absorb the vibration. So I was looking for a mallet that would give me more. I thought about the Emil Richards use of the lighter, and I'm not sure what pitches he used, but I migrated to a harder mallet. By the way, this is an innovative percussion 902, Jim Ross 902. Now it's a fairly hard xylophone mallet, but what it allows you to do is really keep the bar vibrating, and you can move to a much higher range. This B flat being the highest note that I bend, but you can see that it extends the range of the bend possibility using a harder mallet. The problem with it is there's this potential for buzzing on the instrument with it. So I don't know if you can see it here, and this one is definitely needing replacement now, but I've taken some Dr. Scholl's moleskin and cut a little circle and applied it to the top of this mallet. Now in the beginning it kind of absorbs some of the vibrations, so you have to work with it a little bit to wear it down. But it allows you to have a landing pad. So this is a pretty nice assist. It's not perfect. There's still occasionally going to be potentially a little bit buzz. We have to accept that as part of the palette of the piece in a way, but this definitely is a helpful thing. Rattan is the only material to use in the mallets, and these other mallets that I have are the Innovative Percussion Rattan Series 301s. They're the hardest of the three in this series, and you might notice something peculiar about them is they're a little bit shorter than they are when they come out of the bag. The reason for this is, in studying the great vibists such as Gary Burton, and I actually did take a lesson with Gary long ago. At that time I was using his grip, but I was also using this grip a lot. This is the independent grip, the Stevens grip, some people refer to it as. I use this grip a lot on concert vibraphone playing because I think it gives me a little more agility than the cross grip. I'm not saying anything wrong with the cross grip, but for me, I've used this grip more frequently, therefore I think I'm a little more agile with it. But I cut about 1.5 inches off of the mallets, which basically makes them approximately the same length as they are for a Burton-style grip with the mallets projecting out of the back of the hand. I really think this is a major thing for me as a player because it gives me more, the fulcrum is stronger, and it makes the dampening of the bars easier to do because the mallet is shorter. So, now when we get into some of the techniques, I've talked about the bowing. At the time that I wrote this piece, I didn't know of any pieces that combined mallets and bows and a bending mallet. So this for me was one of those things where my palette was fairly complete with this, then I just had to figure out what to do with it. Some of the other techniques that are used in this piece, in addition to mallets and bows, and by the way, I again apply this independent grip or Stevens-esque grip to this as well. I know people that use a cross grip and it seems to work great for them. But this for me is what I've always done, so I've maintained it. The idea of bowing and then bending, one of the things that I find is advantageous in the upper bars, or even bowing it, is making the bend as quickly as you can make it. You don't have much time. The bar, if you try to make it too slow, you lose energy. The lower bars, you can be slower and get a more lyrical sense. By the way, I've mentioned this word lyrical before I go on any further. I want to mention two things. One, I was very young when I wrote this, and the tempo markings in the score, thank goodness nobody seems to honor them, are too fast. I've tried playing it not so long ago at the tempos I marked, and it loses a lot of the character that I really kind of wanted. So youthful indiscretion is what put that in the category of, but basically instead of 140 in the faster tempos, 120 is better. Instead of 88, 84 to 88, it's better to put it somewhere around 75 to 80. To keep the slower tempos, to give you a chance to be more lyrical. And that is the primary concern with a lot of the piece, is to be very lyrical. So don't let anything, speed especially, cause the techniques to suffer. So there are the bowings. One thing about bowing a bar, and this is a challenge on every instrument, is a little bit different. When bowing the bar, when I'm doing an up bow, and by the way, some of the bowing indications in the score are not exactly accurate either. Just bow the best way you can, make every bow work, a down bow, an up bow. In fact, some people wonder whether I meant, is the down bow towards the tip or is it towards the frog? Well, if I do it here, it's obviously towards the frog, so whatever. But when bowing upwards, it's really helpful to bow it on an angle of the bar so that you're catching the edge of the bar instead of trying to come straight up. If you come straight up, the bar will vibrate and you'll lose your bow. So by angling the bow, you can catch it. It's not so important on the way down. You can bow just the flat end of the bar, but when coming up, there's that danger of the bar leaping off the instrument. I use black horsehair. It's the most coarse of the horsehair, and I use Pop's rosin, which really works great. This is getting a little bit old, but and when it gets old, you got to get rid of it. You need fresh rosin. But those are the implements. Doesn't matter if the bow is wooden or fiberglass. In fact, really a good fiberglass bow with black horsehair is great. So, a couple more little things real quickly. Bowing harmonics. Now, I had played a lot of the music of George Crumb already by the time I was writing this piece, so I was well aware that George Crumb has you play harmonics in the piece and in his music. So to get the harmonics to come out, is not really a big deal on the vibraphone, but to bow them, you can get them to actually come out more purely. And the other, when it works, the other technique is to have a modulation from the fundamental pitch to 2 octaves above. And what's cool about this is, for instance, there's a moment where I bow a G harmonic, which extends it beyond the range of the instrument. That G doesn't exist on the instrument, but by bowing it. So that actually extended the instrument a little bit. But whenever you have these notes that are first a fundamental, we'll call it, and then you have the harmonic 2 octaves up, you want to hear that transition if you can. So much easier when I'm not holding mallets too. But, another thing to talk about is the mute that I call for. And again, the idea of this was to kind of have a marimba-esque quality of sound that isn't affected by the application of the pedal. So when I first started, and I'm ashamed of this, but I'll go ahead and confess this to you, I used the Elliott Carter 8 pieces. It was the right size, but it didn't take very long for my conscience to kick in and realize that I was beating up Elliott Carter. This is unacceptable. So basically, I went to books that I really never use. This one has approximately 10 pages in it. So it's thick enough to dampen the bar, whether the pedal is open or closed. In order to keep it from wandering around, I apply a little edge to the book so that it falls down in between the 2 bars, and it keeps it from wandering around. Some people use cloth, but that doesn't really get the quality of sound. I like to have that little papery, cardboard-ish quality of sound with it. So, peruse the trumpet or clarinet stacks in a music store and buy some very thin book and beat up on that. So the motor usage, a lot of people even take their motors off of their vibraphones or no longer recognize it, thinking that somehow it's an amusical aspect of the instrument. I completely disagree with this. You don't have to use it, but don't take it off, because there are a lot of compositions that use the motor, and it's not so much about an expressive vibrato like a violinist, it's a color. Using the motor on the vibraphone is a coloration. So you can think of it as an expressive vibrato, but really it's more of a color on the instrument. So I'm still a big believer in it. I think that probably is about all I have to say about the techniques used in this piece. It's a good idea to learn the notes first, so practice it with mallets before you attempt to attack it with the bows. It makes the learning process easier, and I hope if any of you attempt to play this piece that you will enjoy it. That's my greatest hope, that it becomes an enjoyable aspect of your repertoire. Thank you.